So for the purposes of the recording, today is Wednesday, April 24th, and we are on our Lunch and Learn, the third one of the week. And today's topic is called Leading a Club with Younger Members. So again, welcome. Thanks for being here and thanks for investing in yourself as a 4-H volunteer, which also in turn provides a wonderful opportunity for the youth and families that are participating in the experiences that you're leading. So thanks for doing that locally. And let's get started and dive right in here today. And so today we're all about younger audiences that we work with, and we're going to dive right into a variety of ages and what that means for us in our experiences. So this is kind of a fun photo to get us really focused on the idea that we're working with younger youth. And so before we do that, I have a poll. I want to know a little bit more about what ages you're working with. All right. So the poll should be popping up right now. The first question says, in my volunteer role, I work primarily with either primarily younger youth or mixed ages. So tell me maybe what you're looking at from an aspect of your volunteer role currently. And then also, I would benefit from learning ways to effectively create 4-H experiences for younger youth as well. So a couple quick poll questions here. Go ahead and tell me a little bit more about what we're looking at. I'll leave it open here for another minute or so. Awesome. Thanks so much for giving me some quick feedback, and I'll share the results so we kind of know what we're looking at here. And it looks like we all work with primarily mixed ages. And so I would love to know more about, what that means. When you say you work with mixed ages, pop in the chat, what does that mean for you? Are you working with youth that are a variety of maybe high school, middle school, elementary, more middle school and elementary, or more of a mixed age group from even an elementary standpoint? So if you can share a little bit more detail in the chat, that would be fantastic. Okay, so far we have a 5 to 18. Thanks, Erin. Anyone else want to share? Youth to 5 to 18. Thanks, Janine. Mostly elementary and a handful of high school. Okay, fantastic. 5 to 16. Thanks, Casey. So keep those coming here in the chat. That gives us an idea of what we're looking at and how we can work together. Megan says one of her clubs has about 30 members, usually about half are Clover kids. And at meetings, you have higher Clover kid participation. Yep, that sounds kind of classic. So excellent. Thanks for joining to learn some new ideas today. And Pamela, 6 to 15. So awesome. That gives us an idea of what we're looking at today for a variety of ages, and also kind of gives us a mindset of how to apply what we're going to learn today. If you're just joining, welcome. Thanks for being here today. We are recording and we're just sharing some of the ages that we work with currently in our 4-H experiences. So before we jump into some ideas and just some practical tips, I want to focus ourselves here on, again, our 4-H role and what this means for helping youth thrive in their 4-H learning experience. If you were here with me on Monday, I visited about the idea of how 4-H club leaders and project leaders are really developing youth at the very kind of beginning of their developmental experiences. And, it's spring. We're going to hope we get some rain. We know that there's some wonderful things coming up right now with planting flowers and planting plants and maybe trees. And we know that the soil in which we plant those things into are really important for making sure that these plants and flowers and trees really are able to grow and develop in the best way possible. And so with that being said, it's just like the youth that we work with. As a 4-H club leader or project leader, we're looking at providing some great soil for the youth that we work with to have some great developmental experiences as they get older. And so here you are working here at the soil with the youth that you work with, and creating a lot of experiences is important for their development. And so thank you for doing that, and thanks for making sure that we are having all kinds of experiences for youth to find their spark, have a sense of belonging, have a great relationship with others and a caring adult like yourself, and then be engaged in learning as well. So just a kind of a centering moment about what we do, why we do it, and how we're making a difference. Excellent. And if you're just joining, welcome. Thanks for being here today. And we're just diving into what we might call our meat and potatoes of our session. So today we're focusing on leading a club, or even maybe a portion of your club with primarily younger youth, and what that means for us as volunteers, and some best practices for what that can look like. Before we dive into that, we want to just take a moment and just base ourselves on what the research says about working with youth of these ages. Tomorrow's session is all about ages and stages of various age groups, and not just the younger ages. But it also, I really don't want to steal the thunder of tomorrow's presentation. I'm not going to get into all of the social, intellectual, physical development pieces of every age group. Today, we're focusing maybe on some highlights of these younger ages, and specifically with our early childhood, which would be our Clover kids of ages 5 to 7, as well as our younger 4-H members, which is, kind of really early on in their 4-H career, of the 8 to 10. Okay, so we're kind of focused on those for today. And so if we're really focusing on, starting with Clover kids in that 5 to 7, we know the following things about that age group. We know that they like to be physically active. We know that they have better control of large muscles than small muscles. And we know that they are having a period of slow and steady growth over the course of time. So what does that mean for us as volunteers? It means that we should be providing experiences that encourage a lot of physical activity, like running and playing games, and painting, actively doing something. A sit and get kind of learning experience, maybe with a worksheet and a pencil, may not be their favorite thing or age appropriate. Also, we can use projects that can be completed by beginners. So some really intricate kinds of maybe craft or other projects might really be messy for this age group. For example, cutting things might be difficult for this age group. So if that's something you want to do, maybe pre-plan your activity and do some prep work so that they're ready to assemble and do some of those large muscle activities versus the minor muscle activities. And also, it's great to practice opportunities that practice skill, and an opportunity to learn new skills. That's kind of the highlight reel of working with the Clover Kid age group. Now let's look at the younger members and what that looks like for them. They want really active learning experiences. They have a lot of energy. They want to be active and moving from one thing to the next. We also know that girls at this age are likely maturing faster than boys. And so therefore, avoiding competitions between boys and girls might be recommended, because then you might end up with a potential argument or disagreement. And so if we are avoiding that, that would be something that can help you as a volunteer. Also, large and small muscle development like strength and balance and coordination are increasing at this age. So when planning recreation or things of that nature, they are just getting there. So, allowing them to move their bodies and use those skills is also recommended for these age groups. Okay. So again, these are kind of the highlight reel of what we're looking at for these age groups, with definitely more details that will be shared tomorrow. Something to keep in mind for this group, and actually all groups, is that when we give a recommendation for how youth develop in a variety of ways, really what this is we're saying this is how the majority of the group develops, knowing that individual youth in these ages are likely, could be ahead, they could be behind. You're going to have some outliers. So know that when you're working with your youth, that this is a recommended place to start, but you're going to experience a wide variety of differences, even within a certain age group. Okay. So good knowledge to get started today as we move forward with some practical tips of what this looks like for us as volunteers. If you've been at one of my sessions before, you've likely seen this 4-H meeting wheel being used and encouraged to be used as a way to plan your 4-H experiences. And today we're going to really focus on breaking down each one of these with planning with age in mind. Okay. And so when I say planning with age in mind, as we go through, we're going to give some practical tips of what that looks like for both Clover kids and a younger 4-H age, so that we can have some just ideas and maybe spur some ideas for planning, maybe a split activity at a club, or even the idea that you may want to cater that group to that age with maybe older youth serving as more of a mentor during that experience. So my plan is to give you ideas and then for you to share how you might implement or maybe what you might do currently. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with the business part. This part might be the most challenging for you when thinking about working with younger members and what that looks like. So if you're working with mixed ages, which I think most of you are, what you might do is consider splitting up your officer positions into two groups. One for the older youth, in which they are serving as a president, vice president, secretary, historian, all of those kinds of things. And then maybe thinking about a younger set of officers for your Clover kids or younger youth. And so when we're thinking about Clover kids, what kind of officer roles can we have them do? There is nothing that says that you are really restricted to traditional officer roles. Think about having an officer role or roles for leading pledges. An officer role is for distributing supplies, distributing snacks, things of that nature. And it's also important at this age that you might consider taking turns. So might be an officer role for that given meeting, or even that given maybe 3 or 6 months versus a whole year. So be creative with your Clover kids. The same piece for your younger 4-H club members. So again, you have some mixed roles, and you might agree with me that some of your 8, 9, 10-year-olds are your most regular meeting attenders, as opposed to maybe some of your high school students. If that's the case, we can give them a little bit more flexibility here. They might be ready to take on more of a traditional role with some help from an adult. They might also be a creative officer role of a photographer or a game coordinator, might be a meeting host of someone who is helping organize, like who might be bringing treats for that meeting. And also think about the term of office might be shorter, 3 or 6 months even, to give more time and more space to have additional youth share that officer role or that leadership role. So again, these are maybe ideas that are outside the box, and also give us an idea for youth to get a taste of a leadership opportunity before maybe they are old enough to maybe take on a leadership opportunity that might be for a year. Any reflection of how we might elect officers, any of these you think you might be able to use right away in your club? Feel free to unmute or put in the chat if you're resonating with any of these so far. I think the main piece here is about feel free to get creative. Brainstorm with your fellow volunteers or parents and see how you might be able to introduce some of these other ideas especially if you have a larger club, or if you have a mixed ages in which you might be able to make it more meaningful for that younger group. Thanks, Dawn, for mentioning that you like that idea. Clover Kids snack officers, excellent. Megan has in the chat here that they have struggled the last 2 years with having enough 4-H age members present at the same meeting to hold elections. So we've used some of these ideas and drawn roles out of a hat. Yep, absolutely, that meeting to mix things up. That is a fantastic idea, especially if you've got some younger members, or maybe even those 8 to 10-year-old members who could read from a meeting script and could help serve in that role for that time. So excellent idea. All right, let's get back to the business meeting. So if we're now doing a business meeting for younger youth, if you have a Clover Kid club or really just a younger group, keeping that business meeting to be pretty short is good. Potentially leaving meeting announcements for the adults, maybe while the group is doing an icebreaker or team building or something else. Maybe a business meeting is focused more on goal setting as opposed to really passing official business. So what you might do is throw out a goal for your group and encourage them to vote in an age appropriate way, which might mean that you have a marker board or a poster on the wall that has a smiley or a sad face. So meaning if they want to work on that goal, they're going to go, put a mark underneath the happy. And if they don't want to work on that, maybe they'll do it next to the sad. And if they're unsure, you could do a face up the straight line. So there's lots of age appropriate ways to vote. And you might replace a business meeting with a citizenship or civic education lesson that's age appropriate about why business meetings happen. Okay, so hopefully those are ideas that would work for Clover Kids. And then also for younger members, encourage a shorter business meeting. In fact, when we meet for 6 times a year, that's our minimum that we need to meet. A shorter business meeting is probably appreciated by everyone if there's not significant business to pass. Okay. Again, you might leave some announcements for youth, for really if you're having a program announcement, but if it's maybe some deadline announcements, maybe giving those specifically to adults might be recommended. Introduce the basics of a business meeting. So I think if you've been with me before, we have talked about the parliamentary trail mix activity, which is really enjoyed by this group. And then I have mentioned already about providing a meeting script for this group that is able to read and share that way. Any reflection about how you might use this in a business meeting or something you've done before that you might want to share along these lines? We've talked about these parts of the 4-H experience before, and this might seem challenging. I'm hoping that these ideas will give you some nuggets to think about how you might think creatively about these pieces that are traditionally part of the 4-H club experience that we want 4-Hers to learn, but maybe just need to think about it in a bit of a creative way. All right, let's talk about club finances. Again, how do we take this really important piece that might be involved in the club business meeting and think about what this means for younger ages? So when we talk about fundraisers, if there is an age appropriate fundraiser for a Clover Kid, so maybe having them go out and sell things may not be the best option, but maybe a lemonade stand at a county fair is. Again, needs to be well supervised, and we may not jump to that fundraiser right away. We might need to look at doing a lesson on giving, spending, and saving in replace of a club finance instead. Same thing for The younger members, if you have a group of that 8 to 10-year-olds, again, we want to make sure it's an age-appropriate fundraiser or they are definitely well supervised during that time. And I think it's important for adults to provide some support for this age group when they are making club/group financial decisions. For example, if you are wanting to institute a club dues for your group, you may need to have adults explain more about what the dues are used for, what an appropriate level of dues might be. We might have a youth who is like, well, I think we should have, $50 club dues for our 4-H club. And so it might take a little bit of adults to help interject and create a greater level of understanding about what that money would be used for and what's appropriate for that as well. Megan has in the chat here, curious about this, as we've just opened a checking account for the first time in the 19 years as a club. Clubs can have a checking account. You are not required to. There's just some financial policy pieces that you must follow, in which I'm sure you're reminded of that by your county staff. And if you have questions, I'm very happy to direct you to those resources, so you're following those. And so obviously a Clover kid or a younger youth is probably not able to be on a signer as a treasurer of that club. And so that might be a limiting factor for younger youth, but it's definitely something that they should know about, know that the club has money, and how you plan to use that as well. Anyone want to share some ideas that you've used for the club finances piece with younger members? And if you don't, that's fine. This is probably a newer topic for us today, but feel free to add things to the chat as we go. What we're going to get up next to is like the meat and potatoes of our 4-H experiences, and that is regarding the learning piece of our wheel. And this is what I think gives us the most flexibility when working with these age groups, is the idea that there are so many different pieces to the pie in this learning wheel, with service activities, tours, educational materials, guest speakers and presentations, special programs, project work, show and tell, demonstrations, and talks. So this is just so much flexibility here that I think this is where we have a lot of opportunity to be flexible and creative when we're planning these experiences for mixed ages or younger groups. So of course, when we have a Clover kid, if your club is doing some sort of tour or speaker, we want to encourage participation. My caveat to this is that you might need to revisit some of the safety factors or risk management factors, depending on the tour, or what that looks like. And so you may need just to be cognizant of that, of different age groups there. You might encourage Clover kids to do a short 30 or 60 seconds on here for a simple project talk. I would even say it could be less than 30 seconds if you've got some really young Clover kids. We want them to start thinking about public speaking in a fun way and achievable way, and that's a great way to go about it. Show and tell is a fantastic way to bring a project talk or demonstration to their age level. And then also some simple hands-on project work. There are so many Clover Kid resources out there to maybe do a fair project at a meeting, but keep in mind it needs to be simple and something that they can achieve, maybe with some guidance from older members or some adults, okay? Pamela has in the chat here that you let them pick out prizes for the kids' fun day that your county has yearly. That is a fantastic idea to get them involved. So what can we do for these younger, 8 to 10-year-olds? Well, tours and speakers are great. They're going to have a bit longer of an attention span. And some of the safety concerns may not be as stringent here, depending on what you're doing as a group. They're more able to participate in service activities, whereas Clover kids may not be able to, depending on what that means. And they're also able to give a short 2 to 5 minute talk or demonstration. So again, if you're looking to get them involved and sharing about an experience they've had, this is something I would highly recommend. And then of course, the hands-on project work is what they're going to be wanting to do as well. Remember, they want active, they want something that's holding their attention in that age group. So hands-on project work is definitely a great opportunity for that group. So some similarities between Clover Kids and younger members with some distinct differences between those age groups. Anyone have something they want to share in the chat or a question for what might work for these age groups? Feel free to unmute or put that in the chat now. All right, we're going to keep moving, but go ahead if you have an idea, pop that in the chat and we would love to hear it. All right, so the next piece we're going to go with is going with the fun part, in which we want this to be fun, right? And not frustrating or not something that they don't enjoy. And when we went to the Clover Kid age group and we're thinking about their characteristics, we need to make sure that we are planning short and non-competitive activities. And when we're thinking about what that means, we know that developmentally, they're not quite ready for competition quite yet. Granted, they are getting there, and they will get there at some point here. But if we are focusing on potentially some team building or even some hands-on STEM activities, that would be a great way to introduce hands-on learning activities that's fun, but yet is not competitive. And so there's some really great things out there that I can share in the chat when we get done here today that will have that opportunity for you to have team building, which requires very little prep, very little supplies, and easily implemented into your experiences. The other thing that I think sometimes that we forget, and sometimes I forget this too as a volunteer, is that celebration is important. So how do we celebrate at the end of the year? I would love to see some of those ideas be popped into the chat as well. How do we celebrate from a Clover Kid age appropriate type of thing? Is it ice cream cones? Is it something that they get to share that what they have learned and why and how they've had fun as that age. So Clover Kids, the key thing here for fun is non-competitive and really focusing more on team building, cooperation, and fun hands-on activities like through STEM. And then also, let's go ahead and go into our next age group for what fun looks like. And you've heard me say already that they want active activities. They want to avoid competition between boys and girls because they're just kind of at that age where they're appreciate being with their own gender. However, putting them together for a competition is probably not the best route. They want active recreation. They want things like maybe a relay game or something where they're being really active and using some hands-on types of activities. They're able to move and enjoy themselves in that way before they're maybe ready to sit down and learn. And finally, a celebration of a completed event or year. They might want to go swimming or something else that's really active as a way to celebrate the completion of the year. And so these are some things to give you ideas and promote some brainstorming about what might work. And there's been some really great things added in the chat, and I want to highlight them for sure. So we've had some things in here. Dawn says their club has hosted a t-shirt design day at their local t-shirt printing company. That's a great idea. It's a tour, it's building in some community awareness and maybe even some hands-on things to see. Maybe they'd let them put the press down if heat wasn't an option, but heat wasn't a risk. And it might be in that case, but these are great ideas that are, hey, you know what? We wear t-shirts every day and this is how they're made. That's a really fun idea. Megan has here that they do an annual meeting at a local site that is a mix of photography project work and community service. So local recreation area, historical society campus. That sounds like a gold mine. That's awesome. They work in pairs or trios to take photos towards the photo scavenger hunt that happens to align with entry classes. I love that intentionality. Excellent. And everyone carries a bag to pick up trash at the same time. And there's a prize for the team with the heaviest trash bag. I love that. Heaviest trash bag award is fantastic. You might also do the most unique and appropriate item found as well. I like that. Michaela says their club, after their fair, you go fishing as a club as a celebration. What a great idea. That might also double as some environmental education. And kids of youth that are the Clover Kid or younger members, that's an age group that's really going to enjoy fishing. So definitely need some adult supervision and some adult help there, I'm guessing, Michaela. But that's a really great idea. Janine shares that they have a point system in their club, and we celebrate at the end of the year with a High Point Award. What a great idea. Awards are given in each age group. I love that. With a focus on making sure that all participating members receive awards. That's excellent. It's fun to see Clover Kids' reactions and winning a chair. Wow. Or a jacket and for recognizing their participation. So that's awesome, Janine, that it sounds like you have quite the awards program and sponsors to make that happen. But really great ideas to share how you might celebrate, incorporate fun into your volunteer roles. That's fantastic. Anyone else want to share along those lines? These are really great ideas. And even if you don't have something that you have already done, we would really love to hear though about some things that you plan to implement based on our session today. So we've had some sharing so far, but sometimes we also learn from things we want to implement, ideas that you have gained along the way, or even if you've tried something and it hasn't worked. We want to hear that too, because we learn from each other's success and maybe learning opportunities along the way. So I would love to hear someone who might want to unmute and just share something they've tried and didn't work, or something that they're looking forward to trying.
Hey, it's Erin. I
Yeah.
love the idea of narrowing down the business topics to very few for the kids and then just covering the details with the parents, maybe while our older kids are teaching the younger ones an activity or a project. Love it.
Yeah, excellent. I think that provides an opportunity for adults to maybe dive in and ask some questions when they know that time is dedicated to maybe you as the volunteer, being there to answer their questions while they know the youth are busy learning and doing something else, maybe with a project leader or older youth, right? And so that really provides some intentionality to your time together. So definitely use that to your benefit. Thanks, Erin. Anyone else? Again, this could even be something that you've caught on to today from the presentation or the chat box that you're like, gosh, I think I'm going to implement that, and we can definitely dive into, how should we do that best, and what might be some recommendations for that person if they're thinking they want to implement one of these ideas. as a 4-H club leader myself, our group is quite large. And so I really like the idea of having some younger officer roles that may even, maybe transition about halfway through the year to give them a taste of serving in that role. For example, we might have someone who leads pledges for maybe the first half of the year, and then someone else is chosen to lead the pledges for the second half of the year. Something else, I should have put this on the slide and I didn't. Our club has a flag bearer, and their job is to bring the flags to all of our meetings, right? And so that would be another example of someone that if you have club equipment that is responsible for taking care of it, bringing it, making sure that it's cleaned, put away, whatever that may be. And that might be more for specifically along an FLL team or something of that nature. But that's another office or role, a leadership role that you might consider for a younger age as well, so that they are able to have that taste. And again, something else that I think is really a cool idea for trying to give younger youth a taste of a leadership role is to even make them maybe a snack committee of younger youth that their job is to serve the snack that time, right? It might be a lot to ask an 8-year-old to pass out snacks to everyone, but maybe if we have a snack committee, they could help and make it, many folks coming together to make sure everyone gets their snack in a timely fashion. So be creative. There's really no limit in how you might do that. And so I think there's some things that you might find that's easy to implement by thinking outside the box. Megan has a note here in the chat. It's a reminder to include fun or recreation in a meeting was useful. So they've done that in the season with her first Lego League. That's what FLL stands for. And it's been very helpful in keeping them on task. Absolutely. Great idea for club meetings as well. So that's a great reminder, Megan, that you might have a special interest group that you're leading. I'm also a certified shooting sports instructor. And sometimes, we get done with our practice or before the practice, and after everything is in a safe mode, we have a race to see who can go pick up the most shells or the most clays, and because they're ready to move at that time, right? And so there's ways to be creative and have them have that really important activity. Granted, that's not a Clover Kid endorsed activity for shooting sports, but for those younger youth that are involved in some of those shooting sports, they're able to do some of those things as well. Erin says she's going to get the youth to move more. Absolutely. I'm going to stop my share here, and I have some really great resources that I want to put in the chat today because there's just a lot of already existing things out there that you might find is really helpful for you as a club leader if you're trying to come up with ideas on how to get your club to move more or to do icebreakers, team building activities, or even some STEM activities for the younger youth. And so I definitely want to share where you can find those and those links too. All right, so I'm just going to pop in the chat here. The very first thing is some Clover Kid activities and resources. So it's always good to be reminded that we have these resources available to you. And there's some things in there with some learning resources. There's some questions and answers in there if you're maybe thinking about starting a Clover Kid club, or you're trying to recruit another volunteer to help you with that, right? That's always a possibility. So make sure that you check that out if that is of use to you. And then also, I want to share something called STEM at Home, in which there are some really great STEM activities in here that you might also use for not only a learning activity, but also for that non-competitive hands-on experience we want to provide to this age group as well. There's some really great 4-H games and activities, icebreakers, all kinds of things that my colleague from North Dakota has shared with us. And that's this really big packet of games and activities from North Dakota that is some really great, maybe a scavenger hunt. It might be something that they are getting up and getting moving, like a clothespin tag or a water balloon toss. I mean, that sounds like a really fun thing to do in the summer in Nebraska that might be part of your post-fair celebration of getting youth moving. And if they get wet, it's okay because it's really hot out, right? So there's a lot of really great ideas there that I encourage you to take a peek at to introduce those as well. So please use those links and share with potentially the other volunteers that you work with, or maybe other parents who are volunteering to help you maybe lead part of that meeting, whether it might be the activity or the STEM activity. There's just a lot of resources out there for you. We have about 15 minutes left of our time together, and I want to make space for questions and answers. So if we've been sharing some ideas, but if you have a question, please make sure that you ask that today, and I would be happy to help provide some direction or an answer. So if you have a question, now is a great time to unmute or put that in the chat box. If you don't have any questions, I think that's a really great sign. And really your questions could be around working with this group, or maybe something that you're considering trying, but you just need to know maybe a little bit more about if someone else has done it before and if they have any advice for you. If you're just joining us, welcome and thanks for being here today. At this point, we've kind of wrapped up most of our content, and we are into some question and answers and also doing some sharing. And the session is recorded, so you can definitely catch the recording if you wanted to see the idea sharing that happened. But for the sake of the individual who just joined us, let's share something that you really thought was something you can implement in your groups. And so I would love to hear from each of you, if you want to put that in the chat or if you want to unmute. Let's help out the volunteer who just joined by sharing something they plan to implement.
Janine Huntley and I, Erin, are leaders of our club, and we've been talking about the end of the year celebration, maybe a pizza party, maybe at a spray park, or a park for the kids to be active at.
Excellent. Yes, active. Excellent. Very, very good. Thank you, Erin. And thanks, Janine. Anyone else?
I really appreciated the idea of getting the younger kids involved in club meetings, getting the Clover kids to be snack officers and the 8 to 10-year-olds, giving them a role as a leader, taking notes or being the photographer and so forth. So I thought that was wonderful.
Excellent. Yeah, be creative, is it a snack officer? Is it a snack committee? Is it a pledge committee? Because we all know sometimes not everyone's there, right? So if you elect a pledge committee of, let's say, like 2 to 3 youth, your chances are probably pretty strong that at least one of them will be there, right? And if, two are there, they could start off with the Pledge of Allegiance and then go into the 4-H pledge. There's a lot of ways in which to engage that younger audience into having more of a role at that point. Excellent. Who else wants to share? Okay, Megan put in the chat. She's going to play more games and increase recreation time. Excellent. That can be done indoors, outdoors. Some of us might be meeting in a space that may not allow for indoor recreation. What could that look like? Can you go to a different space? If the weather's okay, can you go outside? Lots of opportunity for increasing those kinds of games and things of that nature. Let's hear from a few more folks if you wouldn't mind sharing some things that you want to implement. I'm going to pick on Tammy. Tammy, do you mind sharing an idea that you plan to implement or to encourage the volunteers in your county to implement as well? Tammy might have had to answer the phone in her county office. So Tammy doesn't get picked on today. Anyone else want to share? Casey or Andrew? Oh no, here's Tammy. Fantastic.
Hi, Jill.
Hi.
I think I'm going to share like the Clover Kid officer thing to our leaders to implement something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? You could hear in a little bit. The recording will be online, and you could even share the link with them. If they want to, hear what we talked about.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be online today so I can email it out to them.
Fantastic. All right, Casey or Andrew, do you feel like sharing maybe some ideas that you might have? Or Janine Brown?
I don't have any new ideas, but this was good to hear that, like in our club, our flag keeper, that's a younger member that runs that. We do business meetings and include all ages in our business meetings. And we really focus on proper parliamentary procedure and helping the younger members understand that. And it's funny because the Clover kids will almost always be the first ones to raise their hand to make a motion or to add context to something that we're voting on.
Absolutely. They're so excited to participate, right? And to feel like they're included. And so I hope that the things that we've talked about today are some other unique ways that you might encourage them to be included in that. So thanks for sharing that. That is fantastic. These are all really great things and that we can use to also create a sense of belonging in our group with our younger members who might otherwise feel as though that they don't belong in our group if we have mixed ages. And so, creating some of these ways to help youth feel like they have a voice, they belong in our group. Us as volunteers and leaders, we care about them, and making sure that they have a place is just really important to making our role and our 4-H experiences intentional and really worthwhile for our youth to participate. And so definitely, if you've got other ideas and you want to share those with me, fantastic. I would love to hear them. Otherwise, thanks so much for being on our Lunch and Learn today. Again, I am convinced that we have wonderful volunteers, and you all are a great example of that. of creating these intentional experiences and wanting to get some new ideas today. So thanks so much for being on. We have one more comment here in the chat. Megan says that last year we utilized the summer reading program materials in our club meetings. Okay, summer reading program materials can be made available to you through your county office. Okay, and one of the books was about, is it Rube Goldberg? So we built Rube Goldberg machines at a meeting. That's awesome. The Clover kids were a lot better at it than the older members. That's funny. And they didn't self-impose constraints or fears of failure. That is really awesome. Great reflection and great idea, Megan, for sharing a new idea. That's amazing. So thank you for sharing ideas and for sharing how you're going to implement these new things. And so we are actually going, I didn't realize I had my poll question on there the whole time. Sorry about that. I'm going to launch a quick post question here for you. On your screen, you should see, as a result of this session, you've learned ways to plan some age-appropriate 4-H experiences for younger members. And then I plan to implement at least one new idea from today's session into the 4-H experiences I lead. So I would love to hear some feedback there as we wrap up today. Awesome. Thanks for voting. I have a couple more minutes here to get your vote in. All right. Thank you so much for voting on that and sharing some reflection. I really appreciate your willingness to do that. So thanks so much for being on today and for sharing some great brainstorming and idea sharing. We hope to see you tomorrow for our last session called Ages and Stages. So see you tomorrow, and thanks again for serving as a volunteer.